Excuse me, Mr. DJ.
Hey, check this out. We got a great show coming your way.
From the ECSI Sports Studios, the #1 sports information program in America, the Breakfast Bankroll, with your host, the sports broker, Jeff Dawson.
Good afternoon, sports fans from all around the globe. I am your host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and this is your midday market report. Sorry for the wrong intro. I'll have to yell at my backstage hand there. Yes, I am back from Vegas. Got back early Sunday morning. Got my sea legs back. I've been busy. Trying to get into a new office and studio, which will be a work in progress. But today I'm blessed to have Ron M. at Ron A. Sports back with us at the ECSI control desk to talk about Week 1 NFL. This gentleman puts out months and months of homework. He's got an amazing guide that he has forwarded to ECSI that we will have on our website, hopefully mid to late this week, so everyone can come over, download, get a piece of what we're talking about, and I hope to have Ron on a weekly basis on Tuesdays. Schedule obviously pending. How's that sound? So without further ado, let's bring him on, the one and only Mr. Ron M. from eSports.
Good afternoon, Jeff. How are you?
I'm doing great, Ron. How are you?
I'm wonderful. You know, Sunday, just the NFL, the ultimate reality show, it lives up to its hype every single week. Week 1 was certainly exciting. Glued to my seats. Couldn't even really focus on the start of the kickoffs for the late games on Sunday because the early games were still going on.
I talked to you backstage, but I'm going to let this go so everyone watching and listening can hear this. 6,133 people stepped up to the circa and dropped down $1,000 on their survivor contest. And that means basically pick one winner, no spread, just win each week, and you can't pick them the same. Then circa has a couple little gadgets and fun stuff on Thanksgiving and on Christmas. So of those 6,133 contestants, only 2,685 left. Over 2/3 have left the building, and that was with the Colts, who tied. They did not win. They tied. No, excuse me.
Yeah, they tied.
They tied, yes. Titans lose at the buzzer to the Giants. 49ers in a monsoon lose to the Bears, and the Broncos last night lose to Seattle. The Panthers was the next one after that, and then so on and so forth. When you hear something like that, what are you thinking after the results from Week 1?
You know, I asked this question of myself, and a couple of others asked me this. What are my biggest surprises after Week 1? And the honest truth is, I only had one surprise after Week 1. I mean, teams sometimes win Week 1 and they don't win the rest of the year. Jacksonville had that happen. San Francisco won Week 1 and won Week 17, and that were their only wins. The only result that surprised me, since I was pretty top heavy on the Chicago Bears this week, the only result that was surprising to me was the way Miami handled New England. I just was a little confused as to why Miami was able to get their way and understand the coaching schematics so soon with the new staff, whereas New England looked a little powerless. And I had them pretty much rated dead even coming into the season. That's an adjustment on my end I may need to make, but the other 15 games did not surprise me.
You know, I try to take my Week 1 analysis, and we know Week 2 is the greatest week because we have overreaction Monday. And so people are sitting back, as we said, you can't get a fair shake of Trey Lance, I think, and the 49ers because of the monsoon. Even though they had the lead at halftime, Bears kind of rolled in the second half. I'm trying to go back. You talk about my Patriots, a line that I thought stunk all summer. That these lines came out in June. That Miami was only 2.5-point favorites. The Patriots had a bad preseason, and the rumblings down the road weren't good. No OC, no quarterback coach. And yet, as you said, that line finally moved to 3.5 there. But the Dolphins controlled their way. A handful of others. I mean, Colts. I mean, Ryan's a great 20-20 guy. Hats off to the Texans, I thought. I thought the Texans showed a lot of heart there. Mills played fine. The defense kind of surprised me. Really played fine there. Last night, the whole world was on the Broncos. It was basically, if you were betting the Broncos, you were betting the return of Russ versus the Seattle team, Pete Carroll, and the 12th man. What'd you take from Monday night's game?
Boy, where did you want to start? I mean, first of all, the line was a little high according to my power ratings. I had the line checked off at 4.5, so I saw Seattle value. Second, I saw a Denver team that obviously didn't use August to their maximum efficiency. Even the sideline reporter noted that to the coach, how come you didn't play your starters? Are you a little rusty? All those penalties and so on. New coaches need to see their teams in action. And then we saw one of the most unusual last 3 minutes of the game. 3:21 left on the clock, all 3 timeouts. And the Denver Broncos seemed to think that they had all the time in the world. Clock management was terrible. They didn't even use a timeout until the 20-second mark. They let the 40-second clock run down to 1 second before calling that timeout. Even if they called that timeout with about a minute to go, no one's kicking a 64-yard field goal or playing for a 64-yard field goal to try to win the game at that point. I just thought Denver made too many correctable mistakes that shouldn't have happened week 1.
So we get to week 2, and you kind of a few minutes ago segue in. I like to write my lines down on Sunday night, and then I play the hide and seek game to see how close I was to the opening number, see what the over-under is, usually within a half point, once in a while a point, either which way. But when I am 3.5, 4.5 points off, I try to find out what am I missing. And I was traveling last night, and I was listening to a show with guys in our lanes talking about it, and they were as dumbfounded as me. So I can't wait to hear your power rankings. How in holy hell are the Patriots 1.5 point favorites at Pittsburgh?
I'm looking at my numbers here, and of course I have Pittsburgh circled now. I'm going to have 2 or 3 game teams circled because of injuries. TJ Watt, for me, is worth about 3/4 of a point. His absence, because it's not just his play, but that means they have to single team other guys. And Mike Tomlin's an attacking defense. They sacked Burrows 7 times. The absence of TJ Watt will impact their sack totals. The other thing is Pittsburgh was all out to win that game. I mean, 70 minutes or whatever they played. There were so many ebbs and flows. They had a great game plan. They should have won that game a little bit easier. When you think of a 7-to-1 sack ratio and a +5 turnover ratio, you should be winning by double digits. Because of that, I can understand the line, because I think we would be overvaluing Pittsburgh if we gave them a spike for that win against Cincinnati. So I think the line is relatively in alignment. There is a chance Pittsburgh is going to be fatigued coming into the next week.
The look-ahead line also, Ron, had the Patriots favored. Now, it was a short favorite again. It's only 1.5. Also, Najee Harris banged up. There is talks, though, that he should be okay and be able to go. But just, I guess my question to you initially is, will there be more of a sense of urgency from the Pats since they're 0-1 versus the Steelers? The home game, their first home game, the emotions, the full overtime, 10 minutes there as well. So you telling me technically we could actually see a little letdown here initially from the Steelers?
I think so, but I trust in Mike Tomlin too, so I'm not going to put too much stock in the fact that they're 1-0 and they're going to let down. I just think it might be tired legs in the fourth quarter that might do that. I think the mindset is going to be fine. A Mike Tomlin team comes prepared to play, whether they have the talent or whether they do not. They win a conference game. If they beat New England, it's kind of like a tiebreaker game. None of us really think Pittsburgh's going to win the division, although anything's on the table. So if you're going to go 9-8 or 10-7, head to head is going to come into play. And so if I'm Mike Tomlin, I'm telling the team, hey, listen, if we beat New England and we end up tied at the end of the year with the same identical record, we're going to go to the playoffs, and New England is not going to go to the playoffs. So I think on that note, I look at it as an even slate for motivation.
In the intro, I talked about the weeks and months of prep work that you did to get to the final result of your book. Week 1 is complete. Give us the process of what you do now from your initial breakdown to your power rankings to week 1 and get us to week 2 where we are now, that we could actually dig into some opening numbers. Maybe you could share some thoughts of some numbers that look a little skewed or vice versa.
Okay. Well, the very first thing I do, and I have completed that as of last night, and I am going to send it out. And if you go on my Twitter, you'll see probably tonight or tomorrow, you'll see where you can link to this week 1 overreaction article. It's something I do every single year. It's really 2 or 3 pages just talking about what my expectations were, where they are moving forward, where you should pivot, where you shouldn't pivot. You shouldn't be down on Cincinnati. You shouldn't be down on San Francisco. This is what I expected. As far as getting the week 1 to week 2, I use that overreaction to see where the lines are. I look to see what the new coaches did or didn't do, and some of them excelled. We could talk about a couple of examples a little bit later on, and some of them didn't excel, like the Denver coach. I'm not making a lot of adjustments just from week 1 stats. I need 4 weeks of work before I completely transfer over to 2022 stats. So I'm still going to use the guidelines that I put across in my 32-page preview. I'm still going to rely on what I thought would happen in September. I'm pretty much not going to pivot other than major injuries.
So it's Tuesday now, about 3:44 my time back east. It's just lunchtime in your time. I guess my first question, what is your process moving forward? Do you now create your own lines with your power rankings and assess what Vegas has and make your assessment there? Are you an initial pounce on Tuesday, or do you kind of let the public take the numbers and then you figure it out from there?
Okay, great questions. And you alluded to the fact that you yourself do some blind opening lines and then compare them to the Vegas lines. I do the same thing each and every week. I sit myself up in a closed room and I put in my numbers. Adjusting power ratings for NFL takes 12 minutes, really. I mean, it doesn't take a lot of time. College is much more detailed. And then, so I'm setting the lines. I look at the lines. I don't like to look at the opening lines for the NFL. Completely different in college. In college, I pounce on as many week 2 lines as I can because there's going to be massive changes. I let the lines percolate a little bit. So it's not till Monday afternoon, yesterday afternoon, that I would look at the NFL lines and then compare that line to what I have. And like you said, where I see a difference, I'm going to say, okay, I didn't expect that set, but I could see it based on my numbers. Or, okay, what am I missing? Or, okay, that line is a little too strong or weak. I pivoted from what I used to do with the NFL. So I've not taken any play for the NFL for week 2. And I'm comfortable just sitting back and digesting the information. And if I miss something that I should have had, I'll take a deep breath. There are 16, 15 other games on the slate. I'm not going to go hastily in a decision. The NFL is just different for me than college in terms of how I attack the lines.
If I look from my eyes as analyzing the market, I'm going to just go over the board quickly with you um, and tell you, I'm not saying the lines are skewed, but they're just kind of watch and waits. The first one obviously is on Thursday night where the Chiefs opened up 3 or 3.5 versus the Chargers. The Chargers had a pretty, I don't want to say tough battle, but it was a good game against the Raiders. I thought they controlled it for the most part there. The Chiefs just boxed the wire, dismantling of the Cardinals there. I don't know if it was chip on the shoulder with Mahomes, 5 touchdowns, or if this is going to be what we're looking at for an Arizona team, or actually the NFC West, who was OFA until the Seattle game there. So your initial thought process on the opening number, it's going to be a great game. The under over right now is about 54.5 on the Vegas shops as well. And now Kansas City is tipped to 4. Again, an opening number, which to me was begging for Kansas City money. They're getting it. How do you initially, it's only Tuesday, look at that game?
Well, it's only Tuesday, but now we're 2 days away from a Thursday game. It happens quickly in the NFL these days. It's interesting because I am a metrics handicapper, especially after week 4. I feel like I have advantages week 1 because I've done so much work and I have a history of looking at different things for week 1. Week 2 is not necessarily a strong week for me. And I do look at situations. So one of the I have 2 good situations that I like in this game, and they favor Kansas City in one of them and the Chargers in another. So it's going to kind of wash out. I think the line set was okay, but I think the line is fair, but when you're cross 4, I think you're getting into tough territory because the Chargers have a good history playing at Kansas City. They're okay playing with shorter week rest. In fact, I think it helps when you play coaches like Belichick and Andy Reid with shorter rest because they get shorter preparation time as well. The Chargers are 1-0 in the division. They know what this game means. I see this as a really pretty closely even matchup. If I pull the trigger, it would be on the Chargers.
Going down the board, here's the next one that was an eye opener. The Ravens only 3.5 against the Dolphins. The Ravens had their way, obviously, against the Jets with Flacco. No Zach Wilson yet. Miami controlled the game from start to finish against the Patriots. Now they travel to Baltimore, and it only opened. This Don Best is showing it opened at 4. It didn't. I saw an opening number at 3.5, and it's still 3.5. Is that to me that's short on the Ravens, or is that Vegas with that much respect for the Dolphins?
As I mentioned before, the game that surprised me the most was New England Miami, and so that's the game I made the only real adjustment other than for injuries. So based on my revised number, I don't think Baltimore should be more than 3. So I'm kind of the other way. And I say that even though going into the season, I thought Baltimore could play for the AFC Championship game. And I have them at, I think I discussed this with Las Vegas Chris. Chris and I have done the summer series. We've had incredible guests, and we do little fireside chats as well. We do a lot of stuff. We're going to do an every Friday show, Games of the Week, with our friend, my longtime friend, Ted Sobel. So we're going to talk about his Sports USA Games of the Week. All that being said, I think Miami showed me a lot of good stuff last week, and I think the line is fair. And Baltimore, again, I don't know what it is with them. Their mascot gets hurt. Their running backs aren't back. Now they lost, I think, a defensive back for the year. I think I jotted down something else. Yeah, one of their offensive linemen tore his Achilles. I mean, I don't know what it is in Baltimore, but if they are ever at full strength, they would be even more dangerous than they are. But it's kind of a wait and see game. I understand the line though, because Baltimore is the experienced team.
I want to see. I'll give you one or two more. We already talked about the Patriots opened up 1.5-point favorites there. Where was the other game that surprised me? I mean, Cincinnati 7.5 now without Dak Prescott. Where'd you have Dallas before the season started, and where would you look to them now the next 6 to 8 weeks?
Okay, well, let's start in April. And before the draft, I had Dallas still with wiggle room against Philadelphia, winning the division. After the draft, a little bit closer. And then as we started the season, we saw Dallas with another injury that cost them. And Philadelphia had added another defensive back, knowing that's their weakness, as it showed versus Detroit. And all of a sudden, I had the thinnest of margins between Dallas and Philly. And now where we are after Dak, and the big question everybody seems to ask, and I get asked this a lot, is how much is a quarterback worth? And it really depends on the difference between quarterback 1 and quarterback 2 in the locker room. If you have a good quarterback 2, you're not going to downgrade as much. When Aaron Rodgers goes down and somebody takes over, it's been worth 10 points. Initially, my reaction, and I texted this out to somebody, that Dak Prescott is worth 7 points. And if that's the case, the line is fairly accurate, because if Dak Prescott was playing, and he didn't have a good game against Tampa, but if he was playing, I would have made the line pick him. So in that case, I would have made the line Cincy on the road at Dallas as a 7-point favorite. Maybe 7.5, because I was toying with how much Dak was worth, 7 or 7.5. But Dallas mentally is pretty deflated right now. Their mindset is not there. Cincy's mindset should be, we played one of the worst games we've ever played, and we still almost won. So you got to look at where they are mentally between week 1 and week 2. And right now, Dallas has an opportunity to finish last in the division if they're not careful.
10, 6. I guess the last NFL game I'll talk to you, because I wanted to pick your brain for a couple seconds in college as well, if I could. Arizona goes to Las Vegas. A computer consensus number of 3. The Vegas Strip has it at 5.5. Is that an overreaction, or is that about the right spot that you see that number as well?
Strictly going on power ratings, the number should be 4.5 at full strength for both teams. We knew Arizona wasn't at full strength last week. So the question is, will they be this week? So it might be a tad low, because the line is ticking up. I think I even saw 6 before we started the show. So, and that's understandable, because the public's going to react to the fact that Arizona looks pretty bad. They gave up a lot of points. Coaching is an issue, and so on. And it's not a game I'm really interested in, because in general, this is not a good spot for Vegas. But you got Chandler Jones, who played with Arizona last year, and now he's playing with Vegas. So, guys that switch teams and play their former team, it doesn't matter a whole lot to me if it's week 11. But if you're talking about week 2, it's fresh in their memory and everything like that. So, there might be something to that. I think the line is fair. Boy, Davante Adams looks so good, and he's probably salivating to go against that Arizona secondary, which is the weak link. So as much as some situations may favor Arizona, I don't think the matchups favor them.
From a fantasy perspective, I've seen Josh McDaniel work in New England forever. Now he finally leaves and he goes to Vegas. Carr gets his college wide receiver back, and Davante is Davante. And I was worried. I don't know if I was more worried with McDaniel or Carr, meaning he didn't throw the ball till late third quarter to Renfro. He spotted a couple throws to Waller. He was locked in to Adams. I mean, I don't want to say he was forcing it, but I was afraid of this. Outside looking in, not even from a fantasy perspective. Did you see that, or do you think moving forward, no one ever double teams Davante Adams? I always wondered why they never did it in the Raiders. They're not doing it here. Is this going to be a match made in heaven, or can you see the lockjaw and the eyes like this? Where's Devontae versus? He's got some great weapons all around.
Well, first of all, the Chargers secondary and the Arizona secondary, they shouldn't be in the same room together. I mean, the Chargers secondary is that good. So you're going to see Darren Waller open all over the field in the red zone and stuff like that. You're going to see more weapons used. There were some probably one-on-one lockdowns because I value the Chargers secondary as being pretty good. And now that they may have a pass rush finally with Khalil Mack, that created some problems for Carr. And I think the Raiders competed. I was more impressed in the loss for the Raiders than I were with the wins for maybe 10 other teams. So I don't see any problem moving forward, transitioning from playing the Charger defense to playing the Cardinal defense.
All right, I have to ask you because you're not just an NFL guru, you're a college guy. I remember back to our first show, you talked about that Georgia Tech that you expected as the season progressed for them. You know, they got through the Clemsons, they survived. We're into week 3 now. I don't want to say I was wrong, but I was wondering how Georgia was going to replace 85% of the defense, a couple of the wide receivers. They've outscored their opponents a bazillion to nothing. Alabama, as high as 20.5-point favorites, sneaks out a win in Texas. Now Georgia goes to the number 1 spot. I guess Scott Frost, and I'm a diehard Nebraska fan from the 80s. They couldn't even get him to the Oklahoma game. I mean, last week especially, A&M, Jimbo, this was his year. They lose. Notre Dame loses. Can you give us not only last week's analysis, what the hell is going on in college football?
Yeah, it's great. And I'm going to have an article up on college football in a day or so too. So I'll point readers to that as well. I don't pretend to have all the answers, but I've been incredibly pleased with the work that I did. I did put out a 64-page NCAA preview, so I'm happy with that. I didn't see Georgia's defense being this good. I know they played a lot of players last year in some blowouts, so it's not like the reserves didn't play. But when you have 15 NFL draft choices and 6 first-rounders and all the defense, hats off to them for the coaching and the job that they've done. I also didn't see Alabama allowing that much on defense against Texas. That surprised me. The line was way out of whack. I had the line 16.5, so that got inflated. But I thought Alabama was, I said, I'm not touching that. I know I have value, but Alabama's going to shut them down. Only Texas, because they got conservative, shut down there. The Nebraska thing was probably expected. I don't know Scott Frost's relationship with his players, but I know he was extremely arrogant to the press and to everybody who interacted with him in terms of media print. And I think he did this to himself. As far as A&M, I expected regression this year. Didn't expect it against App State because App State, typically teams that are on the losing end of 63-61 shootouts that are crazy, have a little letdown the next week. So congratulations to App State for controlling clock. They had the ball almost 42 minutes in that game. 82 plays to 38, by the way. A&M ran 38 plays the whole game. So, yeah, I mean, college is a whole different animal. You really have to get inside the box score to see what's going on with these teams. Notre Dame, bad turnover ratio. Other teams, bad turnover ratio. Turnovers are worth 3.75 points in college.
So before we close out here, Ron, I guess my question to you twofold. It's Tuesday. It's early. I'm not asking you for any Biff's Almanac, as Dave Sharapan would likes to say, or any future crystal ball. Any NFL/college games piqued your interest early this week for maybe the listeners and everyone to keep an eye on?
I'm going to have to be more on top of that for next week. So I have to tell you in full disclosure here that getting ready for week one in the NFL takes 95% of my time. And that's why all the stuff I do college week 2, which was last week, was done Monday and Tuesday. And then to get ready for week 3, I'm just going to get into this routine that I get in during the season. So for this week, I've made no early plays, and all I've done is eliminate plays. So I took a 50 game board in college and made it down to an 18 game board that I'm looking at. So, process of elimination. This game, the lines, I don't have a lead. I'm looking at the stats and so on. And that's what I'm going to do the next day or two. Starting next week, I'll have some preliminary stuff going on for college and probably for the NFL. But I've got so much going on with my future plays that I do, seasonal player props, all kinds of things that I'm up against. It's me doing it because that's where I try to find the edges. But I sacrifice week 2 in the NFL a little bit and week 2 and 3 in the college. Because really last week I was only looking for lines that I could pounce on right away. And then on Saturday morning, I take a closer look and add a couple more games. So I don't have anything for you at the present time, but we can work on that for next time.
No, this is the beauty of the shows that we have, and I love your responses because they're unscripted. There's no blueprints, there's no nothing. So you are. This is great because we're able to work together, and that nugget alone, with the fact that you are able to eliminate all those games and you're down to an 18 game board. I just hope people are listening to that, because that's what we talk about all the time. Is just because it's on TV doesn't mean we have to play it. I sent out our alert last night, Ron, and I said, we've had back-to-back amazing Sundays. We call it Envelope Monday. We've had some great weeks the last couple of weeks. I was like, enjoy it. I said, the whole world's on Denver. Let the public, let the DGens enjoy it. You guys count your money. It's Envelope Monday. And of course, Seattle goes box to wire and ends up winning that game. But what you said about that is knowledge. It's power. It's the fact that being able to scratch games off and really focus on that. I applaud that, Ron. I really do.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, you have to go into that approach. I mean, a lot of people bet the board. A lot of people bet 2 or 3 games. I think it's week to week. And you have to, I've done enough work and research over the many, many, many years that I've done this, that I know I have an advantage week 1, and I feel like I have an advantage when I cross over to 2022 stats, which for college, I also do mostly after week 4. Sometimes I'll do it a little earlier, but you have to be careful because of schedule disparities. The numbers don't mean as much when you're playing 3 cupcakes versus another team that's played 2 conference games. So to be careful in my own mind when I'm using line of scrimmage data, I try to have 4 games in the books for each team. So the amount of plays that I have is high week 1, and then it doesn't get high again until week 5. 2, 3, and 4 in college, there's going to be smaller number of plays. That's just the way the board shakes out. That's just the way I feel about how I handicap.
Last question. I know you play a lot of futures, win totals in the NFL. After week 1, you assessed your board with your futures. It's only 1 week. I know that, but how's it looking?
Yeah. I'm glad you didn't ask me after week 1 of college, because even though I started off 23-5 in games in college, I looked at my future numbers and I said, this is really a bad start to it. And then last week was better and stuff like that. I have 13 unders and 3 overs. 3 overs is the most overplays in season wins in the NFL I've had in probably 7 or 8 or 9 years. I hate overs for a million reasons, partly because market overvalues them, partly because a quarterback or other key player injuries will kill you, and so on and so forth. Resting players if you're a good team. But I'd say the board's looking pretty good. I got lucky in some instances, unlucky in a couple of other instances. My bigger plays, are doing very well. It's interesting. My play of the week was Chicago, but Chicago is one of my bigger underplays. So secretly, I was hoping. I mean, you can't play this game once you have a season win total. Put it in the drawer and forget about it. I mean, absolutely forget about it. In the back of my mind, I'm saying, yeah, I wish Chicago didn't win, but you just got to go week to week on that. That's Justin Fields. They got to play San Francisco week 1. That was a blessing to play them week 1. And Justin Fields looked awful, but he made a couple of splash plays. The preview talks about that. I'm okay with the way week 1 shaped up for the season win totals, but I don't read anything into it.
It's Ron at Ron Ace Sports. We can't thank him enough here. The crawl has been going. You can go on to Twitter and follow him at Ron Ace Sports. We're hoping again to have weekly Tuesday afternoon college and NFL talk. And listen, I will make sure Twitterland, once it's up on our website, we're going to have that full NFL preview for you guys to go out there to download it, to enjoy it. As you said, it shouldn't be hidden in the desk. There is so much work. I'm absolutely loving it. We can't thank you enough for you, Ron.
Thanks for having me on. My weakness is I just love chatting about college and NFL 24/7. So yeah, I need some downtime. I've got down to a science. Once we get going here, Wednesdays will be light on football and more on other stuff. But for the most part, the season, before you know it, it'll be week 7, week 10, week 12. Just stay in the moment and enjoy it from a fan standpoint, from a recreational standpoint, recreational handicappers. Just enjoy what you're seeing. It's quality TV. It's quality sports.
The one and only Ron from Ron A Sports. Follow him on the Twitter. You can follow myself at EC Sports Invest on Twitter. Go to our YouTube or Twitch channels at East Coast Sports Investors. Subscribe if you already haven't. It's free, guys. It doesn't cost a penny, and you can smash the like button as well. Again, thank you, Ron. We look forward to seeing your work throughout the year, and best of luck with your futures and your plays coming up this week.
Thank you.
And that will be it for this show. Coming on soon will be the closing bell with myself and Riley Magnuson. We'll have that on at about a half hour, give or take. So for myself, Jeff Dawson at EC Sports Invest, from Ron at Ron A Sports, we wish everyone a blessed day. Enjoy yourself. If you're wagering today, please do it carefully in that MLB. There's some gold mines, a lot of landmines. So save that money for football on Thursday and the rest of the weekend. We will see you soon.